Campaign trail, then GOP nominee Donald Trump often promised he would keep jobs right here on U.S. soil if elected. Well, it appears the president-elect Trump may already be keeping his campaign pledge. Ford confirms one of its production lines is not moving to Mexico as planned, instead choosing to keep making their Lincoln MKC in Louisville, Kentucky. Last night, Mr. Trump tweeted, quote, "I worked hard with Bill Ford to keep the Lincoln plant in Kentucky. I owed it to the great state of Kentucky for their confidence in me." Meanwhile, some are saying that Trump had nothing to do with it. Trump transition senior advisor Kellyanne Conway is back with us. I got to say, on the surface, it looks like, hey, Ford, if you plan on moving to Mexico and shipping a car back into the U.S. with a 35% fee, that's quite an incentive to stay.
It's a big incentive to stay. And look, this is one of the issues that Donald Trump highlighted from the beginning. Nobody was talking about illegal immigration. Nobody was talking about trade. Nobody was talking about the fact that jobs have been shipped to China and Mexico and actually could be brought back. And so he elevated these issues from day one. He was at center stage in that first Fox News debate on August 6, 2015, and never lost the top spot, and always stayed true to these issues. And I think you see that now as president-elect. He's taken calls from people like the Ford Corporation, and they're having meaningful discussions. Also, people shouldn't forget this is what businessmen do. They try to solve problems, fix things, build consensus, and deliver.
But can I ask a follow-up on this? Threatening a tariff, which is not a capitalistic kind of thing, does nothing about the real problem, which is the price of a union worker. That problem is still there. How is he going to deal with that? He's
dealt with it on the campaign a little bit, Greg, in that, and I think it worked, because look at how many union households went for him. I mean, overwhelmingly dramatically. And we saw it in the data early on. We saw in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Michigan, it turned out, in other places, that was the rural voters and the union households, many of whom are still registered Democrats to this moment, went overwhelmingly for him. And I think they, too, feel that unions have outlived themselves in many places, and that it's also hurting those in the private sector, hurting entrepreneurs who are trying to attract and retain talent, or trying to grow their business and succeed and prosper. So I think it's that whole basket of issues. And even, I just want to get back to illegal immigration for a moment. Donald Trump's really the first person, after Jeff Sessions in the Senate, to talk about illegal immigration through the lens of the American worker. So the question was always, what's fair to the illegal immigrant? He also asked, what's fair to the American worker who's trying to compete for the same job? And so it all comes from that same, I think, basket of issues and economic concerns.
So can I also throw in there that unions love the idea of breaking these trade agreements, because jobs, manufacturing jobs specifically, will come back to the United States. KG.
Okay, so these are some of the things that he talked about that really resonated, because part of the theme of his campaign was about the working men and women that felt like they had been forgotten. So doesn't it make sense, essentially, that, you know, a businessman needs to come to the table, and essentially to the table in the White House, to try to encourage the economy and encourage U.S. companies to come here? What are some of the ideas in terms of taxes and regulation that would support that move?
Well, his tax plan cuts the corporate tax rate to 15%, and I know a lot of people are excited about that. It reduces capital gains. He unleashes energy investments and exploration, Kimberly, in a way that would spur economic growth overall. We have energy under our feet and off on our shores as I sit here, and yet we're relying on foreign dictators to supply an awful lot of our energy. Also, he talks about infrastructure investments, and he talks about immediately doing away with this Obamacare penalty, where you have a non-choice choice. You can buy government-run health care, or you can pay a penalty. So all of that put together, he also anticipates over 3.5%, maybe 4% growth. People laugh at that? Why are we settling for 1.2% growth? Why is that enough? So that whole tax package that anybody can pull up on our website and part of his 100-day plan, I think pieces of that are going to roll out very quickly once he gets inaugurated.
Let me get Dana in here.
It could also maybe happen on day one, possibly with executive orders. But I know that certainly on the manufacturing side, one of the things from a policy wonk standpoint as well, CAFE miles per gallon standards, and that's one of the things that the car industry was saying, you are killing us over here, plus all the added costs for what you were just talking about in terms of Obamacare. Do you anticipate that happening pretty fast?
That's something he'll definitely take a look at very seriously early on in his administration, because, as you say, it's really it's a political capitulation to some of the special interest groups who want that done. And you know, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on their side of the aisle talked an awful lot about climate change and global warming and fossil fuels, of course, which they seem to like to consume but don't seem to like you to consume. And Donald Trump won. And I think that conversation is because people are so tired of being told what to think and how to act and what to drive and how much water should come out of the sink when they're washing their hands in a public restroom. And no, I do think you're going to see very swift action very early on in the term.
Let's go on.
Kellyanne, so we're looking forward now to confirmation hearings in the Senate. And again, what we can anticipate, and you spoke about this in the opening segment, is a lot of criticism about the selection of Jeff Sessions, the senator from Alabama, and his history. He was the first federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan who was rejected by the Senate
30-some years ago?
Oh, well, I think we're more racially sensitive today than we were 30 years ago.
What are you saying about him? Because I disagree.
The question is, how does President-elect Trump expect to deal with so much, and the Democrats are just going to be tough on this. I don't doubt that he'll get confirmed with the Republican majority.
Then why put the country through it?
Tough.
Then why put the country through it? What are they doing, Juan? Why won't they accept this man and his appointments? He is the president. He was elected fairly and squarely. Name 5 people not named Clinton, Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Barack Obama, or Michelle Obama, that the Democrats would accept right now as a
no one.
I mean,
well, I think Mike Pompeo is going to be fine. I'm just saying I think you can't turn away from the racial concerns in the country.
I think that is so incredibly.
There's no evidence to support that he is racist. Yeah, you're assuming a fact that has not been proved.
No. I'm talking about Sessions, who was rejected by the Senate over this issue.
30-some years ago. Is there a question? The man he's been a federal prosecutor. He's been a U.S. attorney. He's been a United States senator for 20 years, and we're raising thank you.
This is a guy, Dana, who said, oh, the Klan's okay with him until he learned they smoke dope.
Was that about the time Robert Byrd was?
He has a very substantial civil rights record that is respected by those.
Can I bring up just one good news for Jeff Sessions? The people that rejected him 30 years ago, most of them are dead.
All right, they're yelling in my ear because Kellyanne has other appointments she's got to get to. Kellyanne, thank you so much for joining us.